Hi, welcome to Reddit Confessions. Tonight's story begins after the damage was done. Because some mistakes don't echo, they explode. She hasn't spoken to me in 4 days. Not really. She asks where the dog leash is, or whether I paid the internet bill. But spoken, like a person who used to love me speaks? No. And the worst part? I can't even blame her, because I started this fire with one stupid, drunken sentence. Let me paint the scene, not the romantic kind. The kind you look back on with nausea. Saturday night. The kitchen still smelled like burnt garlic from my failed attempt at reconnecting through home-cooked pasta. 2 wine glasses were empty. One was still half full. That one was hers. She'd stopped sipping the moment I opened my mouth. We were talking about jobs, or rather, her new position, her growing responsibilities, how her boss said she handled things better than anyone on the team. And I said, with a stupid laugh I didn't recognize coming out of my own throat, maybe he just wants to handle you better than the rest of the team. The silence was immediate. It was surgical, like the universe hit mute. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at me. And then, like she'd been expecting something like this eventually, she stood up and walked out of the kitchen. She slept in the car that night. I woke up at 2:11 a.m. to the sound of the garage door. I checked the driveway. Her car was there. I thought maybe she went for a drive to clear her head. Instead, I found her curled up in the back seat, engine off, arms crossed like she was hugging herself. She didn't come in until dawn. That day, she made breakfast for herself only. She watered the plants, hers, not mine. She fed the dog. She didn't say a word. I followed her around like a pathetic shadow, whispering things like, I didn't mean it, and it was just a joke, until she finally said, without looking at me, you said what you believe. You just didn't mean for me to hear it. I didn't even recognize the version of me that said that line. I'm not some jealous monster. I've never accused her of cheating. But that night, some bitter, twisted part of me bubbled up, and it chose the worst possible way to show its face. And now I'm watching the woman who used to laugh at my dumb jokes eat dinner with earbuds in, like I'm not even in the room. She texts with someone, smiling at her screen. I can't even ask who. I lost the right to question when I lost her trust. I know what some of you are thinking. It was just one sentence. But sometimes, one sentence is all it takes to open a fracture you didn't even know existed. And if I'm being honest, I think she might already be planning her exit. There's more. And it gets worse before it gets better. If it ever does get better. But for now, I'll just sit here, in the guest room that smells like everything I've ruined, and wonder if silence is the last sound of a marriage breaking. There's something particularly cruel about silence when it isn't empty. When it's full of unspoken decisions, tiny calculations, and the sound of someone emotionally untethering themselves from you. Slowly, quietly, like unbuckling a seatbelt just before crashing through the windshield. That's what it felt like all week. Every moment with her was a muted countdown. The way she closed drawers softly, never slamming them. The way she answered me with one-word sentences like, fine or sure, spoken with the same tone she might use to a cashier or a stranger asking for the time. But the real turning point, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was cardboard. Thursday night, I came home late. I had driven around town after work for no reason, hoping distance would fix something that lived inside the walls of our house. I didn't even listen to music, just drove. The kind of driving you do when you don't want to arrive. And when I finally walked into the house, I saw the box in the hallway. It wasn't hidden. She didn't try to be subtle. Just a plain moving box with a stack of folded sweaters inside. Beside it, a row of empty hangers and her wedding shoes, the ivory ones she only wore once but refused to donate. They were sitting there like they no longer belonged to anything sacred. I stood in the hallway staring like an idiot, like I'd walked in on a crime scene where I was the only suspect. When she walked past me holding another handful of clothes, I said the dumbest thing imaginable. Are you going somewhere? She didn't stop walking. She just said, not tonight, and turned into the guest room. That hit me harder than anything else. Not tonight. Not no. Not maybe. Just not yet. I followed her in, but I didn't raise my voice. I begged. My voice cracked like I was a child again, caught breaking something I didn't know how to fix. I asked her to talk to me, to yell at me, to do something, and still nothing. Eventually, she set down a scarf and sat on the edge of the bed. The same bed where I'd been sleeping alone since that awful night. She didn't cry. That's what killed me. She looked so calm it terrified me. And then she asked, "Why did you say it, Lowell? That line. That thing about my boss. Why that?" I didn't know what to say. I honestly didn't. I could have blamed the gin. I could have blamed jealousy or the years or just being an insecure fool. But all that came out of me was, because I thought, maybe you already had someone else in mind. And it hurt. The moment I said it, I wished I could erase every syllable. Her face didn't move, but her eyes, those eyes that used to see through every lie and insecurity I had, they just went dull, like the light went out behind them. Then she said, "So instead of asking, you accused. Instead of being honest, you turned me into a cliché. That's not love, Lowell. That's not even respect." I sat on the floor, right there in front of her, and I cried. Not the loud sobbing kind. The embarrassing, breathless, shoulder-shaking kind that doesn't come with words. And you know what she did? She stood up and left the room. She didn't slam the door. Didn't whisper, "I hate you," or anything you'd expect from a TV drama. She just walked out of the guest room and into the bedroom we once shared. The one where her side of the bed hasn't been touched in nearly 2 weeks. I don't know what that means. I don't know if she came back to sleep or just to remember. I didn't follow her this time. I just sat there, alone, in the middle of a room full of packing tape and emotional rubble, trying to understand how one stupid sentence, said in a moment of weakness, could detonate 15 years of love and partnership. This isn't over. I can feel it. One way or another, something final is coming. And I'm terrified it won't be forgiveness. I've never been the type to snoop. I used to think that was a good thing, that it meant I was secure, respectful, trusting. But now, I wonder if it was just a convenient excuse to stay blind, to avoid noticing cracks in something I desperately wanted to believe was still whole. Yesterday, something changed. She left for work late, didn't say goodbye. She had this distant look again, like she was rehearsing some difficult speech in her head. I thought maybe she'd say something. Maybe today would be the day we finally sat down and unpacked everything. But no, just keys jingling, door closing, no words. I sat in the quiet for almost an hour before I realized she'd left her phone on the dining room table. It was face down, screen black, but my heart started hammering the second I saw it. I stared at it like it was some kind of glowing threat. I wish I could say I wrestled with myself, that I sat there debating whether or not to pick it up. But the truth? I grabbed it so fast you'd think I was trying to save a drowning man. I didn't want to find anything. I didn't. I wanted to open it and see dumb teacher group chats and Pinterest recipes. I wanted proof that she was just distant because she was hurt, not because she was already gone. The passcode hadn't changed. Same one she's had for years. I unlocked it, hands shaking like I was defusing a bomb. And in a way, I was. There weren't hundreds of messages. No secret apps or suggestive photos. Just one conversation, pinned to the top of her texts. A name I didn't recognize, Harper M. I opened it. The thread was short, clean, but painful in its simplicity. 3 days ago, 11:46 p.m. She wrote, "You were right. He doesn't see me anymore. He only sees who he thinks I'm supposed to be." And Harper replied, "You deserve better. You always have." There were no hearts, no kisses, nothing romantic. But that didn't matter, because the worst part wasn't what she said. It was that she said it to someone else. That used to be me. I used to be her late-night outlet. The one who heard her doubts, her frustrations, her fears. And now some stranger named Harper knows more about the state of my marriage than I do. I put the phone back exactly where she left it. I didn't delete the conversation. I didn't mention it when she got home. But all night I watched her differently. Every smile she gave the dog. Every sigh. Every time she looked at me like I was a project she didn't have the energy to fix. I don't know who Harper is. I don't know if they've met in person. I don't even know if it matters. What I do know is that I wasn't imagining it. Her absence, it's real. She's emotionally invested somewhere else. She's building escape routes while I'm still trying to patch the hole I blasted through our foundation. And the truly messed up part? I think part of me understands her. I neglected her. Not in the obvious ways. I was never cruel, never unfaithful. But I stopped seeing her. I stopped treating her like a woman who needed to be heard, needed to be held, needed to be reminded she mattered. And when she reached her breaking point, I didn't pull her closer. I shoved her away, with a drunken, bitter joke that tore open every wound she tried to ignore for years. So now I'm sitting here wondering if she's already made up her mind. If she's waiting for the right moment to tell me she's leaving. Or worse, if she's hoping I'll be the one to say it, just so she doesn't have to carry the guilt. There's still more. So much more. And I feel like I'm walking towards something irreversible. But maybe that's the scariest part. Knowing it's coming, and still not doing anything to stop it. Last night confirmed something I've been afraid to admit. Whatever this thing is between us, it's unraveling faster than I can keep up. And the worst part? She's no longer trying to stop it. She's just watching it happen. Like someone standing on the shore as the tide drags the pieces of a broken boat out to sea. Started off like the other nights. Quiet. Distant. We sat on opposite ends of the living room, watching the same show on TV but not really watching. I couldn't tell you what it was. Something with canned laughter and bright lighting. The kind of show people watch when they're trying to pretend everything's fine. Afterwards, she got up, said, "I'm gonna take a shower," and walked upstairs. I stayed behind, staring at the blank screen until the silence started to feel hostile again. I followed maybe 20 minutes later, brushing my teeth with the door closed, something we never used to do, then crawling into the guest bed like a roommate crashing in the spare room, not the husband of 15 years. She came in after me. I heard her pad softly around the room, open drawers, close them, and then something unexpected happened. She sat on the edge of the bed, not saying anything, just sitting. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep, hoping she'd say something to break the icy air between us. And she did, just not to me. She whispered into her phone. I couldn't hear the beginning, just the soft vibration of her voice. But eventually I caught pieces. Enough to know it wasn't a work call. It wasn't family. It was Harper. I lay there, absolutely still, while she sat 6 feet away and poured her soul into a late-night phone call I was never meant to hear. And what she said hit me like a slow-moving freight train. No crash, just a steady pressure building until I felt crushed under it. "I don't know how much longer I can live like this," she said quietly. "I'm tired of being invisible in my own house. I keep waiting for him to see me again, to even ask how I feel, but all he does is apologize for things he never tries to change." Then silence. A long pause. And finally, "I'm scared he only loves the idea of us, not me." She wasn't angry when she said it. She sounded sad, broken, like she'd already cried all the tears and was just trying to survive the emotional aftermath. And I wanted to sit up right then, grab her hand, and say something, anything. But I didn't. I stayed frozen, half because I was afraid and half because maybe I didn't want to hear how that conversation ended. I waited until she left the room, taking her phone and sadness with her. She didn't come back to bed. I don't know where she went, and I was too ashamed to look. I laid there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we ended up strangers in a house we built together. And here's what keeps playing in my head on repeat. Her voice, barely above a whisper, saying, "I'm scared he only loves the idea of us." She's right. Maybe that's the truth I didn't want to face. I've been clinging to our history like a life raft, pretending our shared years are enough to carry us forward. But what happens when those years aren't comforting anymore? What happens when they just become proof of how long we've been pretending? I don't know what she's planning. She's keeping her thoughts locked behind that polite, distant smile. But I feel something coming, like standing in the hallway and hearing a door creak open in the dark. You don't see what's behind it yet, but you know it's there. I want to fight for us. I do. But I think I'm finally starting to realize I might be the only one still hoping we're worth saving. I used to find comfort in the routine. Mornings were predictable. Coffee brewing by 7 o'clock, the gentle hum of the shower, Adrian humming some old Fiona Apple song under her breath. It made the house feel alive, like we had our own quiet rhythm. But now everything feels out of sync. It's like living in a house that's still standing, but with the foundation secretly cracked and shifting underneath. This morning was off from the start. She left early, too early for a Tuesday. She didn't even pour her usual travel mug of coffee. Just walked out with her bag over her shoulder and a vague, "I've got a long day." She didn't look at me when she said it. I don't think she even waited to hear if I'd respond. I stared at the door after it closed, then sat in the kitchen wondering what the hell she meant by long day. Normally, she tells me everything. Field trips, staff meetings, even who brought leftover birthday cake to the teacher's lounge. But lately, there's been no sharing, no details, just cold facts or evasive quiet. I wasn't planning to snoop. Honestly, I wasn't. But I went into our bedroom to grab my jacket and noticed her laptop still open on the desk. The screen hadn't locked. That was rare. She's one of those people who double-checks the oven 3 times before we leave the house. I walked over, thinking maybe she left a tab open for a bill or an appointment. Something innocent. But no, it was a draft email. No subject, just a few words in the body. "I think I'm ready." That was it. Just that one line. And below it, unsent, was an address. A rental property listing. I froze. Not because I saw her bags packed or a moving truck waiting outside, but because this wasn't speculation anymore. She was planning, preparing, leaving. The apartment was small, just a 1-bedroom loft with exposed brick and a view of the train station. It looked nothing like our home, and that's exactly why it scared me. It wasn't a backup plan. It was an escape hatch. Something she'd been quietly building while I was sitting in the other room wondering what show to binge next. My hands trembled. I shut the laptop slowly, not even daring to breathe too loudly. I stood there for what felt like half an hour, staring at the desk like it would suddenly give me the answers I was too afraid to ask. That night, I tried to act normal. She came home later than usual, said traffic was bad. I asked how her day was. She said, "Fine." That was it. One word. Fine. A word that means absolutely nothing when it comes from someone who's drifting away from you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to blurt out, "I saw your email." I wanted to demand an explanation. But instead, I just asked if she wanted dinner. She shook her head, said she ate already. I didn't ask where. Later, when she went to take another shower, her second of the day, which has become a weird new pattern, I finally broke. I sat outside the bathroom door like a coward and whispered, "Please don't leave." There was a pause. The water kept running. Then, through the door, I heard her voice, soft, exhausted. "I already left a long time ago, Lowell. You just didn't notice." I think I stopped breathing. What do you say to that? What can anyone say to that? It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a fight. It was worse than that. It was resignation. The voice of someone who tried, and waited, and cried in silence until there were no more tears. And now she was just gone. Emotionally, spiritually, maybe even physically soon. I wanted to knock, to open the door, to see her face when she said those words. But I didn't. I just sat there on the floor outside a locked door in my own house, listening to the water drown out the sound of everything we used to be. This morning didn't begin. It just continued, like yesterday refused to end and spilled straight into the daylight without asking me. I didn't sleep. Not really. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning, listening to every creak of the house, every door closing softly upstairs, wondering which one would be the last. I don't know what time she left. I must have drifted off at some point, maybe for 20 minutes, maybe for 2. But when I came downstairs, the house had that eerie calm to it. That too quiet atmosphere, like a scene in a movie right before someone discovers the goodbye letter. Except I did discover it. Not in the obvious place. Not on the counter or pinned to the fridge. It was inside the kitchen cabinet, folded and placed behind the mug I always use, the navy one with the chipped rim. I don't know how long she'd been hiding it there. A few days? A week? Waiting until I found it by accident? Or maybe hoping I'd never open that cabinet again. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Careful, slanted, full of loops, like it always looked when she was trying not to cry. No date, no salutation, just 6 lines. I've been carrying the weight of your silence for so long. It started sounding like my own thoughts. I kept waiting for you to notice the distance, to pull me back, to ask why I stopped singing in the shower. You didn't. I used to think love meant staying. But I've learned it also means knowing when to go. I'll always be grateful for the years. That last line hit me like a punch to the gut. Not because she was grateful, but because of how she signed it. A. Not Adrian. Not love, Adrian. Not even Adrian Lowry like she used to do when she left notes in my lunchbox. Just a single initial. Cold. Distant. Like a stranger trying not to say her own name out loud. I don't know what hurt more. The letter itself or the realization that she had it ready, waiting, and hidden behind a mug I pass every morning without thought. It made me realize just how much I haven't seen lately. How many signs I brushed off. How many chances I had to ask her what was wrong, to pull her in, to listen. I held the letter for a long time. My hands were shaking. I was angry, but not at her. At me. At this house. At the paint we picked out together and the couch we fought over. I hated everything that used to be ours because now it all felt like evidence. Evidence of a life that was slipping through my fingers because I had the emotional range of a brick wall when it mattered most. I thought about calling her. I even dialed. But I hung up before the first ring. What would I even say? I found the note? Please don't go? That's what I want. But it's not what she needs. She needs someone who hears her before she has to write a goodbye letter and hide it behind ceramic. Around noon, I noticed the dog bowl was empty. She usually fills it in the morning. That's when it really sank in. She wasn't coming back today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. And you know what's sick? Part of me still thought she'd come home with takeout and say something like, "Sorry, I needed air." Like this was all just a dramatic pause in a story that would find its rhythm again. But no, this wasn't a pause. This was punctuation. I don't know if I'm supposed to respond to the note, or if she even wants one. But I wrote something anyway. Just 3 words, scrawled in the corner of the page before folding it and placing it back in the cabinet where she left it. I noticed. Too late. I don't know what's worse, the silence or the guessing. The not knowing where she is, who she's with, or how many pieces of herself she's already packed away from the version of life that included me. The house is so still now, the kind of still that feels intentional, like it's holding its breath, waiting for something inevitable to collapse. It started 2 days ago. I came home from work early. No warning, no reason, just a gut feeling I couldn't shake. Something inside me said, "Go now." So I did. She wasn't home. Neither was her car. And yet, her laptop was still on the desk. Her jacket was still draped over the dining room chair. Like she wasn't gone for long, just a quick errand maybe. But my stomach told a different story. That sick, sinking instinct you get when you've already lost something but haven't fully admitted it yet. I shouldn't have done it. I know that. But I waited. I sat in my car across the street, like a creep, watching the house. 10 minutes. 20. Nothing. Then I drove. I didn't know where I was going at first. I tried the school. Empty lot. No events. Then I drove past the bookstore she likes. The place she used to drag me into on Sunday mornings when she'd say things like, "Let's get lost in fiction today." She wasn't there either. Then, by sheer accident or fate or something crueler, I passed the train station. Her car was in the lot, parked near the edge, just barely within view. I drove past it once, then circled back and parked 3 rows down. I didn't get out. I just sat and waited, heart pounding like I was about to do something criminal. 20 minutes passed. Then she appeared. She wasn't alone. I couldn't see his face at first. Just his posture, tall, relaxed, too familiar with her. They were walking together, not touching, but close. Close enough that it didn't feel like a casual walk between coworkers. And then they stopped, right there near the station bench, and she laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A full laugh. A real one. It knocked the air out of me. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. Maybe longer. And the way she tilted her head back, touched her hair, leaned slightly toward him. It wasn't flirtation, not exactly. It was worse. It was comfort. Safety. And then I saw his face. Harper. Not a man like I assumed. A woman. Everything inside me dropped. All this time I imagined another man. Some confident, emotionally available guy who said the right things while I fumbled my way through apologies. But Harper wasn't a threat in the traditional sense. She was understanding. She was calm. And clearly, she'd been there in all the moments when I wasn't. They didn't kiss. They didn't hug. They just sat down on the bench like two people who didn't need to say much to be heard. And I realized, maybe it wasn't about romance. Maybe it was about presence. And Harper had given her something I stopped giving years ago. Attention without condition. I wanted to storm out of the car. I wanted to confront her, demand answers, ask her why she didn't tell me the truth. But then I saw something that shattered me harder than any confession ever could. Adrienne pulled something from her bag. A small notebook. The red one she used to keep beside our bed. The one she wrote poetry in when we first got married. She handed it to Harper. Just passed it over like it wasn't filled with pieces of her heart I never took the time to read. I drove away after that. Slowly. Numb. I didn't even turn on the radio. Just listened to the sound of the tires humming under the weight of everything I refused to see. That night she came home late. Said she was grading papers. I nodded and said nothing. I didn't ask where she really was. I didn't ask who Harper was to her. Not because I didn't care, but because I already knew. And maybe the most painful part of all this? I didn't feel betrayed. I felt replaced. I wish I could tell you the story ended with some grand gesture. Flowers at the door. A teary reunion at the train station. A dramatic kiss in the rain. But real life doesn't work like that. Real life is quieter. Messier. And sometimes kinder in ways you don't expect. After that night, after watching her hand over that notebook to Harper, something inside me finally settled. Not in defeat, but in clarity. For the first time in years, I saw her clearly. Not as my wife. Not as my other half. But as a woman. A human being. One who'd been whispering for help while I was busy pretending we were fine. I stopped trying to pull her back. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I just gave her what she'd been asking for this whole time. Space. I started taking walks after dinner, long ones. Left the house quiet so she could have time to herself without the weight of me hovering around. I wrote her a letter. Not a desperate one, but honest. I told her I understood. That I had failed to show up when it mattered. That I had let my fear and pride become the loudest voice in our home. But also, that I still believed in us. That if she ever found her way back, I'd be waiting. Not the same, but better. Days passed. Then weeks. She didn't move out. Her bags remained in the closet. The letter in the cabinet disappeared. She didn't say anything about it, and I didn't ask. Something had shifted between us. Not instantly, but gradually. There were small signs. The way she started making enough coffee for two again. The way she asked if I wanted to go grocery shopping with her like she used to. One night she even laughed. Not loud, not wild. Just a little huff when I spilled olive oil all over my sock. Then, last Sunday, I came downstairs and found her sitting on the couch. The red notebook open in her lap. She looked at me, held up the book and said, "You never read it, did you?" I told her the truth. No, I was afraid I wouldn't understand it. She smiled. A tired, fragile smile and said, "Read it now." So I sat, and I read. It was all there, the love, the fear, the loneliness, the hope. The parts of her she'd been trying to show me for years in quiet pages. In glances I never caught, in silences I mistook for peace. When I finished, I looked up. She was crying. So was I. We didn't say anything for a long time. We just sat there, Two people learning how to hold hands again after almost losing the reason to. And then she whispered, I want to try, but this time you have to meet me where I am, not where you wish I was. I nodded, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we stood up together, not perfectly but finally in the same direction. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you, really. And now I want to ask you something. Have you ever said something you couldn't take back, but somehow still found forgiveness on the other side? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there might need to hear it. You've been watching Reddit Confessions. If the story moved you, leave a like, hit subscribe, and tell us what you would have done in my shoes. Until next time, listen closer, love louder, and don't wait until it's too late.